Greetings and welcome to episode number 4 of You Had Me at Halo, where we talk about everything past, present, and future of one of gaming's most storied franchises. This week has been a busy news week for Halo. We have the MCC update to talk about, and we're going to dive a bit deeper into it and talk about what this means for the future of the franchise. Then we need to talk about that Phil Spencer interview. What you talking about, Phil? Campaign and multiplayer split? Then we will address signs that a beta may be imminent and what we'd want from that beta if that happens. Finally, we'll cap it off like we always do with community questions. First, let's meet today's Spartan team. Joining me today is Spartan Mike, aka Kage Maru. How's it going, Mike?
Hey, everyone. Good to be here.
Next up, we have Spartan Urso, aka Soul Blazer.
Yo.
Next, Spartan Jesse, aka Don Cabeza.
Why do you sound like you're laughing while you're introducing me?
I actually got something in my throat.
Oh, I mean, hi everybody. 120 frames per second, 4K, swag YOLO.
1080 UI.
Next up, we have Spartan Austin, aka Peruvian. How's it going, Spartan? Austin?
Good. Doing pretty good.
Somebody wake him up. In the meantime, finally, I am your host today, Spartan One Bad Mother, aka One Bad Mother. So our first topic is going to be the MCC update. According to Windows Update, I'm going to read a couple of the bullets for the improvements for the MCC collection. Halo the Master Chief Collection receives a free upgrade for the next generation Xbox Series X and S consoles on November 17th, 2020. It's going to add 120 frames per second, support across campaign and multiplayer, adjustable field of view support, and improvements to local split screen sessions. So let's turn it over to the panel to see what the thoughts are. I'm going to start off with you, Sol. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's not even it. We also have Halo 4 Flighting happening, which comes with its own slew of updates, the most important of which, in my opinion, and one I've actually been waiting on for a while, is both input-based matchmaking and crossplay. So I'm happy they were able to get that out this year, because that's a big thing, in my opinion. Otherwise, though, it's kind of crazy. 120 FPS on both consoles, which, from what I've heard, and no, I don't really know more about this, so if someone can chime in, it still is pretty noticeable, even on a 60 FPS screen.
Yeah, the input latency is better because it's refreshing more often.
So what do you mean by input latency?
Even
you mean like
the movement of you hitting a stick versus it showing up on screen, the way things feel is better. It just feels better running in 120 frames per second mode.
Yeah, you have more frames packed into a second, so that translates into quicker controller response.
That makes sense. And along with Halo 4 updates, you also added server region selection, which I feel like isn't that big of a deal, but for some people it makes a pretty big difference. And in my opinion, one of the biggest things is the FOV slider, which for the most part is pretty rare on console-based games.
Yeah, actually, you mentioned a couple things there regarding the region selection. I know that's been something, as somebody who has terrible internet, that's been something I've been fighting for a long time. Anybody who has poor internet or has finds inconsistencies from one game to another, what you'll find is in some regions it just plays a lot better because there's just less congestion, which with whatever direction you're kind of going towards that server. So I think that's going to be a huge thing, especially if you're playing alone and have that option.
Yeah, or if you have international friends, right, that you want to play together. I've had that happen before, where they're literally playing with like 300 ms and then they can't do anything. You can find a server in the middle between you guys maybe and play there. A lot of opportunity with that.
Oi, mate, you want to play some Halo? It's me, Nick.
Now you mentioned the input, the input selection, and that I thought that was one of the most interesting things, and I didn't have that down here, but I'm glad you brought it up. I have not actually had a chance to to try that on the PC. Has anybody here tried using a controller, and or has any information about how well that's working? The thing I always fear is PC cheaters.
Wait, are you talking about just a controller versus keyboard and multiplayer? Or are you talking about controller at 120 frames per second?
No, talking about controller versus keyboard and mouse. So
you'll
like
die.
The
mouse will shoot you in the head a lot, and you'll die.
Yeah, I'd never even the amount of MCC that I played on my PC has just been campaign, just because I know I don't like playing multiplayer on the PC because I know most PC players are mouse and keyboard, and I'm not good at it. I get destroyed.
According to my brother, who plays more Halo than I've ever played in my life when it comes to multiplayer, he played on PC for a little while, and according to him, he says when you use a controller, the aim assist is high enough, at least on PC, that a lot of people are playing on controller, even on PC, because they feel the advantage. And what they do is they just have the keyboard ready, they pick up a sniper, they switch over to the keyboard when they have a sniper and they kill people. But otherwise, the way the game was designed, or the way the aim assist was set up, is that PC controllers still have a pretty fair chance. Or so I've heard.
It's that Call of Duty style of magnetism. It pulls you pretty hard. Obviously, you're not going to just immediately flick up to the head without quite a lot of practice.
Yeah.
And in like a power weapon fight, some of the sniper and mouse and keyboard is probably going to kill you real fast. But you can be decently competitive. But if you're looking to be great, you need to get on the mouse and keyboard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No, but so like you mentioned though, there should be input-based matchmaking.
Yes, this is new now, though, so my brother hasn't tested this yet. No, I'm not actually in the flight. Okay. I don't think.
I am.
Yeah, I have seen some great Halo 4 screenshots out there, though. Holy crap!
Does that game look good? It looks so nice. I have a mediocre laptop. Still looks stunning.
Yeah,
it looks nice until you realize you can't go too far left or right. But
wait, 256 meg RAM? I mean,
some of us feel safe in corridors. It's like being back in the womb.
Oh,
don't hate.
Well, I mean, personally, I think that the input-based matchmaking, if that works, my biggest fear always on the PC side of things is PC gamers are just on average a lot better at cheating. So,
I mean, have you heard of a Zim? That's console players using their mouse and keyboard on a console, and it reads it as a controller.
But most console players are lazy.
That's the truth.
There's a lot of Zims out there.
I think console players are far less invested in cheating than, because PC players, they're going to be the more
savvy,
tactically adapt. Yeah, savvy.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So I mean,
I'm talking to a bunch of people who have never played Rainbow Six Siege. That is like 99% Zims
on consoles.
Really? I played a lot of Siege.
It's my cousin and his best friend. They play a ton, and they had to get them because they're like almost everyone we play against at any high rank in ranked play is using a Zim.
Oh, there we go. I'm not high rank, so
yeah, and he's just crazy toxic. So I mean, makes sense.
Yeah, this is a conversation for us good at video games, folks. Mike.
Well, if you're good, you wouldn't have to use a keyboard.
Yeah.
Hey, I didn't say I do.
I value my poor skills because that means I run into fewer cheaters. So
that's true. I guess you don't have to worry about it whether you're on PC or console. No, I think that's something. One of the reasons why I've never switched over to PC gaming primarily, even though I have a PC that's more capable than the One X, is because of the cheating and because I like using the controller. At the end of the day, I just don't like using a keyboard and mouse. It's I understand people who get used to it won't use anything else, but for me, I think I always will be more comfortable with that. And I just like to feel like at least the majority of the people I'm being matched up against are also using a controller. So if that works, what I like about that is it would broaden the pool. But again, like that's only if it works. I do fear that people will still find ways to kind of, to work around it and match up against console guys and, blast them with their.
Even if they do,
we've seen other games already employ it. Like I think Gears does it.
Modern Warfare does as well, I believe.
No,
I don't think it's
well,
going to be
if
that big of a deal.
Modern Warfare
honestly.
doesn't do it because I keep on saying they need to add
really?
it because you can tell who has, unless it's an option that I don't have enabled.
I swear, I
You
thought on
can
the
just-
latest podcast,
It's
Figments
in
said it
Modern
did.
Warfare. The way it works is it locks you in. Once you choose, I'm going to go in this playlist as this type of input. You can't change. Like on console, you can use a mouse and keyboard if you want, and then you would play against PC people with mouse and keyboards and console and controller people who have said okay to it. The one place I think it doesn't work is in Warzone because they need so many people for
Yeah.
each match.
Or some social
that you
playlists,
can't-
maybe.
Yeah,
Is
but
that- is
for
that
a lot
an
of the other
option
stuff,
you turn
it's
on?
input based. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, then that I need to turn that on because from what I understand, when you're not in Modern Warfare, if you're playing, like if I'm just playing with Xbox players, it only matches me with Xbox players. But the moment I play cross-platform, it mixes me up with whoever.
Yeah.
And I can,
Yeah,
you can
and-
definitely tell when someone is rocking a mouse and keyboard
Yeah,
because
yeah.
they are just on point with that aiming.
Yeah, pretty
So what
much
about
once you open the whole thing up for input-based matchmaking, you can just immediately, it'll just give you everyone. If you have it on with that setting, it should read, okay, you're a mouse and keyboard, you'll go with the mouse and keyboard people and controller people who say okay, and when you're just controller, then it should only be controller.
Yeah.
It doesn't,
Okay.
it's probably not 100%, but that is how it's supposed to work. And that's how
Yeah,
it should work with Halo.
And hopefully it does work that way. And hopefully, between their machine learning, they can start to figure out who is cheating. Because obviously there's certain unnatural movements that people are able to achieve with that, using
Hopefully they
some of
allow you to, I mean, even without some kind of automated system, PUBG allows you to report a player because you see how, like, they give you a kill cam. And
Yeah.
then when you're watching the kill cam, you can report that person. So hopefully,
Wait,
I
it's
mean,
built
I know
into
Halo
the kill
doesn't have.
cam?
Yeah,
How many cheaters do they
They're-
have that they had to build a report button into the kill cam?
I think it's been there since the PC days.
That makes sense.
I mean, I mean, they go through waves of banning people on that game.
Yeah.
So
Well, personally, I think a lot of this is pretty awesome. I mean, if that works, that's going to broaden the pool because now you have all those PC players that have, either get it on Game Pass or Steam that join in. And when you start using things like regional filters, you'll still have a nice player pool to go up against. And I know a lot of people didn't like the fact that Halo was going to be cross generation and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, it's the community that makes that game. Long term, it is, at least, in my opinion.
yeah,
So
and the cross-gen support regarding MCC can only be seen as a benefit, in my opinion. I mean,
just more people for you to kill that maybe you have an advantage of finally.
yeah. I mean, my one concern regarding the 120 frame per second support is Halo 1, 2. I think it was finally fixed in Halo 3. Basically, Halo 1 and 2 experienced horrible frame rate issues, like animation issues, if you went over 60 frames, where they actually looked better at 60 frames than 120 frames. And that's, to this day, still the case. We're talking like enemy animation would still display at 60 frames. And not only that, but plasma shot animation would look jagged or, it would look like it's stuttering because it would still render at 60 frames, even if the game is running at 120. So I'm hopeful that that's fixed, because if that's not, then I'm hoping there's an option that you can turn off the 120 frame per second mode.
Well,
you're not forced into it.
Yeah, it's always an option. And 3 and 4, it works perfect. Hopefully they go back and they can fix reach and everything else.
Reach 1 and 2, I know it's broken.
And 2A2
3,
I've heard from some people.
No, 3 they fixed it. It was perfect.
Yeah,
No,
3 they fixed it.
To anniversary?
Yeah. Reach 1 and 2 all
including
are broken with
anniversary.
it.
Because anniversary came out with 2.
Yeah.
So they both inherited the same problem. 3 was the most polished of the PC ports, where it only had like some weird shadow bugs.
Yeah.
It had the original hit detection issues for the netcode.
Well, yeah, the netcode, which they recently released a patch to improve that, right? Or is that still coming?
Yeah, they're working on it. It feels better now, and they said they're gonna keep at it.
So that's my big concern with the 120 frame per second mode. That, and I'm curious. I've never played. I have a 144 hertz monitor that accepts 120 hertz, and that's anytime I've ever played a high frame rate game, I've always played on that monitor. I've never tried it on a 60 frame, like on my HD TV, which is only 60 hertz.
Makes sense.
So
yeah.
I mean, I'm curious to see, does that create any additional stutter or anything,
No.
or does it just look like
From
60
my
frames?
experience, yeah, it's been fine. It just runs at 60,
You know,
and
Okay.
it's smoother.
Yeah,
Yes,
you'll get
feeling.
additional benefits from the increased frame rate. You just won't like see it as well, obviously, as
Yeah, because I would only see the 60 of those 120 frames.
yeah, but you'll feel it in like the input of the game.
Okay, that makes sense.
Especially added in with that dynamic latency input thing that they're putting into the new
Yeah.
controllers.
DLSS or
That,
something.
I know it's
that
kind of
mixed
off
with the
topic,
high, yeah.
but
well,
did
you
you guys
just
see what
think-
that did for Gears?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's really impressive.
So, Mike, are you telling me you've been playing on a TV this whole time when you play multiplayer?
Yeah.
Oh, that explains it. No, I'm just kidding.
Still speaking of MCC though.
Next thing you're going to do is ask me if I've had it on the whole time.
Are your eyes actually open, Mike?
Yeah, but I'm not wearing my glasses. Is that the right way to do it?
Oh, actually,
speaking-
playing on a monitor is actually a better when you're playing multiplayer in general. It's a better experience with Halo,
Yeah.
in my experience.
Lower
So,
latency for the most part.
yeah, just in general. Yeah. So when you start piling all that stuff on, even if you are, and I am, like I said, I'm a console gamer, but when I'm going to spend a lot of time doing multiplayer with anything twitchy, it just feels a lot better. You cut down a lot of that input lag. And when you start stacking that with the extra frames that you're going to be getting in the Series X, for console players and things like that, I think when I first moved over, it felt like it felt like I jumped a whole level, in terms of ranking just from that input latency difference.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I would be surprised if the Series X even lets me enable 120 hertz mode because the One X supports 120 hertz and I can't even enable it on my TV.
Yeah, in Dirt 5, you can only enable it once the TV or the Xbox at a system level is set to enable that.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I may not even have to worry about it, which is fine.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I'm still interested in trying it on my 144 hertz monitor.
I'm excited to see it for 1 CE and 2 anniversary because ever since a few patches ago, they run like doo-doo.
Oh yeah, no,
35, 40 frames a second most of the time.
Yeah, exactly. Like just getting a solid 60 would still be a marked improvement.
Yeah.
On the Series X. Plus, I would imagine that because they said that they're up to 4K with certain games. I'd imagine if I'm whoever's playing on a 60 hertz TV like me and they're locked to 60 frames, you probably aren't going to have to worry about frame rate drops or dynamic resolution. You're probably locked at a nice solid 4K 60.
I was going to say another thing that was really exciting for me, and I guess for others too, was the specific wording on split screen improvements. They don't explain much. They don't do much, but for the most part, I still have family over, and when I play Halo, it's usually with 2 or 3 other people. And holy crap, some games are basically unplayable, even on the X. Halo 2 Anniversary, for example, it drops like 20, 25, 30 frame rates for everyone and lower. And then it keeps switching. You go into a tiny room, and suddenly it's a full 60, and it feels so jarring.
Well, that makes sense too, right?
Oh, 100% it makes sense. I get it, yeah. But I'm excited they specifically mentioned it.
60 frames for split screen, I thought they said. Unless I'm remembering wrong.
I'm not sure if they specifically give any more information yet. All we have is just the word split screen improvements, which hopefully should also mean the actual UI. Because I don't know if you guys have tried playing split screen on the MCC, but when you do, the actual menu system and everything starts bugging out big time.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I've only done 2 players, so I can't speak of like 3 or 4.
Yeah, I've got a feeling a lot of the bugs and issues they've known about for a long time, but they were so busy getting it on PC and then getting this next-gen version ready that none of it's gotten fixed for a long time, like the terrible frame rates and all the UI bugs, because they've been building it up for the big release on November 17th.
I hope so, but they've had this team on the game. It can't be that big of a team, and they've been working nonstop. How much time have they had to really work on the Series X version while working on Halo 3, 4, Reach, ODST, you know?
Well, they're probably...
they contracted that company that got bought by Rockstar to do Reach. So that part, that heavy lifting, wasn't on them directly. They were overseeing it.
And they probably are carrying over a lot of the work from the PC version to the console.
Yeah, that's true, too.
Series X.
Well, if everything works the way it's supposed to make that eventually once they get the game core stuff.
That's the smart delivery promise. Just one.
Well, game core is a bit behind the curve. Plus, even when game core is 100%, it's never going to be complete. But even when it's up to where they want it to be for launch, there's still going to be bespoke iterations or API layers for each platform. It's not going to be a one size fits all.
Right. Well, I'll say what I do think having the PC community included in the Halo, franchise, I think one of the benefits that gets overlooked with that is that PC gamers in general are very particular about everything. Like they'll notice these things like the frames not matching, and if there's any sort of issues with like hit detection. A lot of times as console players, you think back, going all the way back to like OG Xbox 360. We've been sort of conditioned over time to accept
tisk.
accept things that PC gamers don't accept. They are very particular. So I do think that there's going to be some residual impact from just their feedback. I think they raise hell a little bit better than console players. So I think that is going to help. Hopefully, when it comes to things like net code and hit detection and things like that those types of things that get worked out, theoretically they should end up seeing their way to the console as well. So, but what about the field of view? I know we barely touched on that. That's an area that a lot of people are excited about.
It is a good thing.
It's a great thing.
Yeah, I mean,
especially for Halo, goddamn squished as heck 3.
Yeah, Halo 2 and 3 are laughably bad really in that sense. Is this stuff going retroactively to the 1 and 1X, or is it just next gen?
Options. FOV improvements is talk when they're talking about Halo 4. So I don't think it's for next gen only.
Well, I'm reading the update, and again, I'm reading this off of the Windows Central, and it is the MCC update is specifically referring to the Series X and S consoles, and it says it's coming November 17th. So they don't mention anything about current gen.
Well, technically, if you keep going down a little bit, they do mention a field of view option will be available for Halo 4 on Xbox One consoles.
Oh, okay.
So maybe just Halo 4?
that'd be kind of jarring and weird, right?
That'd be weird.
Yeah,
because
100%.
they all suffer from the same like 70-degree viewing angle. I just wonder, like what Jesse mentioned there earlier with the frame rate in 1 and 2. Is this update going to fix or improve frame rates even on current gen? Because the reason that games switch to a lower field of view is because you're rendering less of the scene at once, and it helps performance. So if they're going to give these people the freedom to raise the field of view on systems that are already running into performance problems, I don't know how good that's going to look like on them.
Yeah.
But then they can use it as a marketing tool to be like, look, we know it runs like trash on your 4-year-old Xbox One. Get a Series X.
Well, honestly, I feel really bad saying this, but it's like I didn't even bother to look to see. It's like in my mind that thing's already traded in.
I feel like if you have an Xbox One still at this point, you kind of just accepted that you're gonna have crap FPS, crap resolution. You know what I mean?
But it runs like crap on the One X as well, though.
It's not that bad.
For what game?
I don't. Halo 3 and Halo 4 from what I've played run and ODST. All of those games run great. It's Halo 1 and 2, and specifically in the remastered modes, the frame rate is pretty inconsistent.
Oh, for the campaign. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, for the campaign. Whereas if you play in the remaster mode, like if you go back and watch Jesse's and mine playthrough of the Halo 1 campaign, I'm mostly playing in the classic
original
mode.
As you should for Halo 1.
Yeah, and I was going to say, not only do I prefer the art of that, but every once in a while I'll switch back to the remastered mode, and you can see the frame rate just tank.
Yeah, they put a lot of detail that didn't need to be there.
It's just an issue with the game or the CPU.
It used to run better than that, though. Like it's like when they release the PC versions, they've also subsequently updated the console versions, because whenever they released the PC version of, I forget which one it was, it might have been Reach, maybe even, but they actually messed up the audio for the console versions. Every PC release has also been accompanied by a console update to kind of put them together, and they've done things where they've made the console versions worse. Granted, from what I understand, they fixed the audio issues. It just sounded more compressed. They fixed the audio issues since then, but they haven't fixed the performance issues on console.
Yeah, it's just something that I noticed for when Halo 2 they did it for PC. It broke the menu. That's fixed. And for Halo 3, there was like a specific couple of maps where it dropped to like per second. I don't know why. It seems like when they fix or update something else, breaks.
I imagine because coding video games is real hard.
Not just that, the code is probably so old. Oh man,
it's not. Yeah, that's the thing. It's not even like coding video games on itself. Like working in an engine you're intimately familiar with is difficult as hell. But jumping into a code base that it wasn't yours, I can only imagine. I mean, it's like walking into someone else's apartment completely with the lights out and trying to make your way to like the bathroom without stubbing your toe.
And they have 6 very different apartments.
Yeah, exactly.
I have no idea where we're going right now.
I remember there was there was this time where in World of Warcraft where people were asking for like the simple changes. I think something as simple as like I don't remember, but maybe like a jump percentage or something. And then developers went out and they said, "Listen, we can change this, but if we do this, and this breaks, we don't know why it breaks. It just does. So we can't do this."
That's another thing when it comes to engines. Like you can fix or patch this, but it will, for whatever reason, affect this over here. And that's not something just exclusive to older games. That happens in games today. That's just.
And during work from home, QA is that much harder.
Oh yeah.
It's not even just games. It's anything in technology. If you're working with code and you work with somebody else's, there's usually a lot of paths to get to the same destination. So if you pick somebody else's work up and try to fix it in the middle, you usually don't know how you got to where you're at to figure out where you're going to go. So no, I agree with that. I am going to try to push this along though, because we've spent a half hour on that. So I do want to really just quickly touch on this though. So now that we've seen that there's these updates for the Master Chief Collection, I think one of the interesting thoughts is, do we think that this is it, or could there be more updates in the future? What's
more?
Go ahead and explain. Like, what kind of things do you think could be coming down the road when you say more?
I think what they've been doing, what they're showing, what we'll talk about in a bit with the armor coatings, those are coming. New armor, new coatings.
Do you think those are coming to MCC?
More customization. That's already part of the story, I thought, is that they were coming to MCC and called.
I mean, they added additional. Didn't they add additional armor to Halo 3? That wasn't in it.
No.
Or Halo 1. Halo 1, yeah.
Well, they added the ability.
Proven, you're breaking up.
Mm-hmm. You're breaking up, Proven.
Sorry about that. They added the ability to the visor for Halo 1.
The Halo Infinite thing. The new visor in Halo Infinite was found in the game files, as well as references to armor coatings.
And another thing, Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if once they get Halo 4 ported over, and that's the one on PC, that they make like a major optimization push towards the whole package. Because if you notice, like every newer Halo, like we mentioned before, Halo 1 or Reach, CE, and 2, they had a handful of bugs. They introduced new bugs. But then Halo 3, ODST, those are the most optimized and cleanest and most accurate ports. 4, I don't know how 4 is looking. I haven't really read up much on that, but I haven't seen anything too alarming. Yeah, it seems like it's
like they're getting better,
on a
right?
solid. Yeah, that's the impression I've gotten. I haven't seen.
Alex
bad.
at Digital Foundry was gushing over how well it runs.
Okay, awesome. So it wouldn't surprise me if once they finally pushed 4 out in a final form, that they that they took another pass at the entire package. When I'm thinking more updates is like just fixing whatever may have been broken that they haven't had a chance to get to, and upping the overall performance and bug quality, if that's a thing, of the older titles, along with like further improving the netcode for high frame rate matches and stuff like that.
And the seasons aren't going anywhere, I don't think.
No, yeah, and it's going to give them incentive to continuously update and improve.
You know what I think would be interesting, and this is kind of where my head goes. This could be La La Land, but if you look around at some of the stuff people are working with machine learning, and obviously Microsoft is pretty ahead of the game with that. That's how they do a lot of their backwards compatibility, auto features and things like that. One of the things I kind of wonder about is in the future is if you could even, this might be pie in the sky stuff, but I've seen like old games where they've applied some sort of machine learning to it, and then they update textures and things like that. So I do kind of wonder if Master Chief might continue to be an experimental, like kind of like a R&D type of thing going forward that will help them with other games. Or I guess the flip side is that maybe the code is so old that it doesn't have that sort of flexibility, because we do know there's limitations sometimes with some of the things that they do. But that was one of the things that just kind of came to my mind.
I get the impression.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I get the impression that they're using MCC to kind of almost beta test what they're going to do. Like basically, they're using updates that they're using for that to see what works, what doesn't work.
So where cutout is, you're saying beta test for Infinite and what they're going to do with Infinite for the service aspect of the free-to-play multiplayer.
I feel that's almost confirmed in a sense when they put on the guy from the MCC onto Halo Infinite, right?
Yeah, I mean that's the impression I get, and they've done nothing but speak highly to how the piloting program has benefited them.
Yeah,
with the second run of MCC.
So how do you think that does this make you feel any better about Halo Infinite as a platform? Because I know we talked about that a few shows ago, and I know Mike, you were somebody who was very against, or not, maybe not against it, but you are very skeptical of it. I was
initially very skeptical just because of how many 10-year games we've seen before that have fallen apart. I've opened my eyes to it, and especially having conversations in and out of the podcast with you guys, with the various options that they get with more so the campaign. Like I think those platform type directions, it's easy to see how that benefits the multiplayer side. I think it's a bit harder to see in the offset, like in the initial just response or reaction or the thought process of how that could or may also benefit the campaign or single player. My big concern was, how's that going to affect? When I read that, my big concerns was, does that mean the initial campaign is going to have a proper beginning, start, and finish, which they quickly did say it will. And then also, how would further campaign iterations be added onto this platform? And we discussed that in the past, of various different options that I actually think is a net win. That's a benefit. But then also, the last concern that I had was, what does this mean regarding the overall graphical output. But then you look at something like, and I hate the game with a passion, but you look at Fortnite and the amount of optimizations and advancements they've done at a system level, engine level, and game level is absolutely amazing. That game is a technical marvel in a lot of ways, even though it doesn't look it. So in the way that it's grown from its initial release, whatever it was 3 years ago, if Halo can advance like that, and they're going to have more room to grow once they eventually do kill current gen support.
Yeah,
I'm not really that worried. I'm pretty excited. Like in MCC, the amount of dedication that they've given to MCC does, I think anyone that still is holding concerns, it should give them some comfort.
Yeah, that's where I'm at, and I. Well, go ahead, Austin. I apologize. I cut you off.
No, it's okay.
I didn't even know
you go ahead.
I'm sorry, Austin. No, I'm dead serious. I'm sorry. I didn't even hear you.
I'm not sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I was just gonna say,
it's because you're rude.
My only concern, like if I've ever had a concern, is they dropped the support for Halo 5 pretty fast. But I'm assuming it's just because the game wasn't, for whatever reason, they just dropped the support. Either it wasn't popular enough, or they just didn't have the resources at the time. But what they've done with MCC has kind of given me more confidence that with Infinite they're going to do a good job.
Yeah, and by the way, Austin,
Halo 5?
I prefer you in robot voice over breaking up, so we'll stay there. But yeah,
okay.
Are they not supporting Halo 5 anymore?
No, it was a couple years in. They stopped giving it fresh content updates. They still do playlists and
they still
stuff,
do playlist refreshes, yeah.
Okay.
And it's still a healthy player base too.
I mean, I think we maybe plan to bring it up, or I don't know, but I am interested to see whether or not they do a Halo 5 Series X update, since of all
No, don't bring it up.
Halo 5 is definitely coming to PC, in my opinion. Like, I have little doubt about that. Or I hope so.
It will get a much better version on Series X if they bring it to PC, because obviously they can fix the animation going halved when everything's far away, the level of detail dropping so hard.
Those are really the only things.
Be a far better version. Yeah, and they are extremely noticeable once you notice them. If you're not paying attention, it's not bad.
I don't. Yeah, the LOD transitions are pretty horrible, and the frame rate. Those two things, like. And then there's the LOD filtering and everything. Like if they just fix those with a proper quote unquote PC / next gen patch, the game would look so much better.
So personally, like one of the reasons why some of the things I get excited about when you start looking at like what you're hearing about what Microsoft's doing behind the scenes with, like we know a lot of their studios are working together. They're experimenting with physics and things like that. So you figure if a game that came out, what was that, 2014, that came out in 2014, it was broken. If it's come this far over time, then imagine what, Halo Infinite could be if they were able to, if they were able to plan ahead of time, make sure the engine is going to be something that's malleable and things like that. So yeah, I personally am very excited about the fact that it's evolving, just because I like that you just don't have to wait 3, 4, 5 years to see if something hits. They can keep experimenting and keep iterating. And I think ultimately you end up with a better game that way, because the community will still keep giving feedback on it over, year after year. So, but go ahead.
I'm going to bring this up again later, actually, in the podcast, because a lot of what we're saying right now relates both to the codings we're going to talk about, as well as Phil's quote in the Kotaku interview.
Let's do that.
So one thing.
It's time to transition.
Actually, if you want to go ahead and read the quote, I feel like there's something that relates very well to what we're currently talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So recently there was a Kotaku interview, and I'm sure anybody's listening to this podcast is well aware of it, where Stephen Totilo talked to Phil Spencer, and he alluded to the possibility of a campaign and multiplayer split. His direct quote was, "I asked if Microsoft would consider offering Halo Infinite's campaign at a different time than the multiplayer, if one was complete before the other. Bonnie, who's head of the Halo franchise and the team, is going to drive those decisions, Spencer said. But I think we want to make sure people feel like they have a Halo experience. I think we can look at options like that. He said any decisions like that would have to factor in the structure of the game and the story it's telling. So yeah, I think that's something to think about. But we also want to make sure we do it right. So, and Steven said he took this as a maybe. So I'll let you keep going with that.
So in general, I feel the words that really stick out for me in that quote is but I think we want to make sure people have or feel like they have a Halo experience. And for me, a Halo experience can mean a lot of different things, right? It can mean split multiplayer, which I don't think is going to happen, but that's we'll have that discussion soon. It can mean a beta for Halo Infinite. It can also mean a really polished and released version of MCC, you know? With new updates, with new things. It can even mean a polished version of Halo 5, even, you know?
But you think that even whenever they specifically talk about Infinite?
I think he specifically mentioned the word just a Halo experience for a reason, if you know what I mean. I don't think it necessarily has to refer to Infinite.
Well, he was asking about Infinite, wasn't it? Or
yeah, it was. The question was about Infinite, yes. But it's not a coincidence that we're getting this pretty big MCC update within, a week of the console releasing?
Yeah, I felt like he was talking specifically about Infinite. So like, and I'm kind of in Kotaku, Tatila's
Kotaku.
his frame. Yeah, Kotaku's whatever. I got tacos in the mind. I kind of his takeaway. I think is similar to where I was. He took it as a maybe. So it feels like it's something that's up in the air. But what do you guys think? Austin, what do you think about that?
My only issue is that 343 has a long history of releasing games that aren't finished. So I feel like he shouldn't be saying that. He shouldn't give 343 the excuse to release a game that's not finished, because after the delay, I feel like Halo fans basically expect the game to be finished. Like, they can't release the game with missing content if they're going to delay the game.
I honestly think it's an executive answer. We've already taken it multiple ways here. It's something to try and talk on the issue in the ways you feel comfortable without making any assertions as to what is actually happening. So what he said is about Halo Infinite, but it could be taken about any Halo, and it could mean that, yes, I'm open to the idea of this, but he technically had already shot that down when he said they talked about it in the weeks leading up to the delay. Like, if that really was an option, he wouldn't have already said on the Animal Talking show with Gary Whitta that we talked about it and we didn't want to go that direction. So it's always, it's a democratic, I'm going to answer this thing I've already technically answered, and I'm not going to go into an insane amount of detail about it. It's a little ambiguous, and then you can't say I lied.
Mike, I heard you try to pipe in there. Yeah, go ahead.
I actually kind of think that because of how directly he answered it in the past on Animal Talking, I don't think this is a corporate response. I think this might be just them kind of remaining flexible.
I will fight you over this.
So, in the way that I think his comment regarding we want people to feel like they have a Halo experience is pretty telling in the sense, and they want to do it right. So, if I was in either Phil Spencer's, Bonnie Ross's, or what's his name, Chris Lee.
Yeah, and let me just cut you off for 1 second for people who don't know. Bonnie Ross is the Microsoft corporate vice president, and she runs 343 Studios from that position. Chris Lee is the head of the studio, or not the head. He is the head of the first-person gaming part of 343 Industries and runs the Halo franchises.
He's also the lead in terms of Infinite, right? Like he
is creative director.
Creative director. Thank you.
Yeah. So Bonnie doesn't input on the creative stuff. That's Chris. That stops with Chris Lee.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah. But I mean, I would imagine that in regards of something like releasing a multiplayer and campaign separately, Bonnie would have some input on that as well.
Yep. Yeah. It's very much.
She would probably have more input than Phil. Like Phil would probably be the ultimate one signing off, but Bonnie and it would probably be more so Bonnie and Chris Lee proposing whatever idea they have to Phil.
Yeah.
They've made it pretty clear in their hierarchy. They want their studio heads to be the leaders on decisions like that. They come to them and they all figure it out together. But the actual, this is what we want to do. Like they don't interfere with that. That was a big sea change in their corporate setup.
Yeah. And so to go back to, so if I was Bonnie and if I was Chris and I wanted, and I was all, Phil, and I wanted to do Halo right, and I wanted to give people the experience that the Halo experience that we feel like they should get. What they should do, especially with them being a fan of the flighting program, release the multiplayer early, but treat it, but openly just say that this is the flighting for the multiplayer, because the multiplayer is going to need more tweaks than the campaign. So release the multiplayer early as a flighting program, as a beta, whatever you want to. I think first they should just do a beta, maybe a couple of maps, and then take feedback from that. Then either a couple months, weeks, however long it takes for them to do whatever they need to do, release the multiplayer early as the flight, and then do the quote unquote official launch of the multiplayer alongside of the full Halo release. That way, people don't feel like the people that are for the Halo fans, that Forge is their Halo experience, campaign is their Halo experience, co-op is their Halo experience. They don't feel like they're getting shafted by the multiplayer being flighted, because they were pretty open about flighting the multiplayer from the get-go. They also, if I remember correctly, they also said about flighting the campaign as well. But I think there's less expectations for that. I think flighting the multiplayer is, I think people are more accepting towards. So if they do look to release the multiplayer early, I would just label it as a flighting program in terms of, and then build it from there up until the full release. I don't think they should release them separately as final releases. That would not end well, I don't think.
Yeah, well, the only problem I see with that is, I think when a couple months ago, they said they don't really know what their flighting plans are. It's just because of COVID. So I feel like they're gonna it's all really complicated, because I feel like they don't have enough time to actually do a proper flighting program or a beta. It's like I honestly don't even expect that at this point.
Unless I think you guys are both onto the right scenario, and I'm going to go with Phil is allowing them to be flexible. I think everybody, we probably read it on the forums and heard other people talk about this. People in general are pretty unhappy with the idea of splitting it, and I understand why. People want that nostalgia. They want it to be an event, and I don't think it becomes an event if you split it up, or not to the same same level.
Yeah.
But I do think that Phil wants to give them some flexibility, because I think ideally they probably want to shoot for, let's just say we all predicted before it was the fiscal year thing. Yeah. Like I'm sure that's probably the ideal situation, is get it all out in May. There's nothing else out. There's nothing else going on in May in the gaming industry. And it would be a perfect time for everything to come out, make it an event. But there is the possibility, and we mentioned that if for some reason Halo isn't ready in May, it's because they pulled, they did they were planning on doing remodeling and they found black mold, and it was a bigger, they maybe found some maybe they decided they really needed more work on the campaign than just the graphics, and maybe Staten is in this project because I was under the philosophy, the theory that he was here just to help it land, provide some stability, but maybe he is here for something bigger. And if it is a situation like that, I think they're going to be in a precarious situation. I think right now you probably don't see a fighting if they think there's a shot of it all coming out in May. But if they start getting closer to May and they're like, okay, yeah, this campaign's not going to be ready. We're going to really need the rest of the year for the campaign. I think that's where you go, okay, you know what? We're just going to put out the multiplayer. We're going to call it a fighting. We're going to do a PUBG and just like throw it out there.
Yeah, I can see that.
And that's exactly where I was thinking about PUBG because, and I completely agree with you that most people are not fans of them being separate, like released separately. Whereas I think they would be more accepting of the multiplayer coming out early if they just labeled it as a flighting program. And I do agree with you, Proven, that they may not have the resources to do a full flight program. That's why I think if they can fit the flighting or whatever you want to call it for the multiplayer, I think that would be wise. I don't think it would be wise to release the multiplayer without doing anything regarding at least a beta or a flighting. I think the multiplayer of all things is going to need some public feedback before the quote unquote official launch, because you don't issues like imbalanced weapons, map design, stuff like that's not quite as apparent in a campaign. It's not that hard to make a balanced campaign in a sense, whereas when you're against human opponents and there's different weapons, different layouts, it's pretty easy to see how imbalanced something can be. I mean, I think we all remember the from the Halo 3 beta with the not the needler. What was that? What's the rifle for the Covenant?
Needle rifle?
Beam rifle?
No, not the needle rifle. Not for reach.
Rifle?
No.
Plasma rifle?
It was a. Oh my God! Why can none of us remember?
Trivia?
Purple.
Is this trivia?
Purple rifle.
Not the purple rifle. It's the one that shoots the green darts.
Green rifle. Carbine. You're talking about the carbine.
Yeah,
the carbine. Yeah.
We don't want to
remember. But I don't know if you guys
carbine?
remember.
Halo fan.
That thing was OP as hell in the Halo 3 beta.
That was a long time for the carbine. Well, I mean, you just can go back as far as Halo 5. They had a full beta, and as somebody who's put in over 2,000 hours into the arena modes and that thing, they've since eliminated half the developer maps and half the weapons that were in the launch of that. So yeah, I mean, but I guess that I mean, you think about it though. I think most people accept when a multiplayer game comes out that it's going to change and iterate over time. So I don't know if that's necessarily the death of it. I think that they probably are going to look at this as, hey, let's hold back on the multiplayer, even if it is right, even if they could throw out something fighting. I think we thought maybe it might be something around launch. I don't think that anymore. Let's just try to get it all out in the fiscal year. If we can't, because the campaign's not ready, now we'll just say that we're doing the fighting, even though it might be an option. It just save it in their back pocket, because I think then you could have still an official launch of campaign and multiplayer. You could kind of appease people, hold some multiplayer things back, but you could give them enough, just like, again, we like to say PUBG, you could give them enough where people still feel like, hey, this is a full enough experience that I could still play Halo for the next 5 months while there's really nothing going out on the platform. Otherwise, in terms of first party.
Mm-hmm. I feel like personally, I read that quote, and okay, even if I only talk about Halo Infinite, then to me that almost kind of confirms that we are going to get some kind of alpha or beta, and not far away either. My personal opinion is Game Awards or sometime in November, they'll announce some kind of, they'll show Infinite in some form or another, and we'll have the multiplayer in our hands sooner than later. That's what I feel.
All right, let me jump in right here after Soul. No,
I guess it just depends on how well they thread the needle. Because if we all assume the game is, if we assume that they're planning the game for around May, I would say if we don't have any information about a beta or alpha or whatever by the end of the year, then I just don't know how much time they have. Like maybe they do something where like 3 months before the game releases, like, okay, we're just gonna release the multiplayer, but we're gonna treat it as pre-release, and then we're gonna let you play it all the way up until the actual release. It
That's
could
Yeah.
be
what I'm
something like
thinking,
that.
yeah.
And they could always do the
That's what
Gears
we're-
way too, which is like a month before release, you pop on a beta, quotes on, quotes off, you know?
And that's why, and with one OBM talking about PUBG, that's what they did. I mean, they released a
Yeah.
early
Early
access
access.
version.
and that was the killer app for the Xbox One launch. The X launch.
Yeah,
It ran
The
at like
beta.
20 frames per
2
second.
falls in a row.
Right. So let's step out. Let's do a hypothetical. So I think most of us are under the assumption if they split it, it will be kind of an unofficial split. But let's like step back and say, okay, they're going to go through with this split. This is going to be, they're going to really, really take their time on campaign, and multiplayer is ready to go at least enough. So for just argument's sake, we're just going to make that assumption. What do you think is the absolute worst thing that could come from that? And what is, let's like look at the other side of it. What could be some, benefits if they actually change the model? Could change actually be good? All right. Who wants to take this first? Don, how about you? So we can tell you you're wrong.
What was the question?
So let's just assume that they're going to split the campaign and multiplayer for argument's sake. What's the best and worst thing that could come from that if they go that route?
I'm shocked you actually did the whole question again. Like I didn't actually pay attention. I don't know. I mean, it's a very different. Everything's so different than when Halo was new. So if you, in games like Deep Rock Galactic and so many other things that I played this year, really took advantage of having very long flighting periods, I'm not sure how much benefit you'd get with a few months. I think it would more be to appease people, have something coming out like early through middle next year is probably going to be one of the last slow times for first party. So it certainly is something new. It's something to add on while people are waiting for actual Halo and getting flight sim, which is awesome, but is a niche, a very large niche, but a niche thing. Having that flight would be cool. I don't think it would change development too much, and if it's too much work, they shouldn't do it. I'd rather just get everything at once instead of trying to push out a quick flighting. Because most of the big things that flight, they go for a year or two in early access and really change during that time period. Like before the podcast, up until a few minutes before it, I was playing Risk of Rain 2. That had a very long early access. It only came out in the review you can check out at XboxEra.com and on our YouTube page on Tuesday. So it had a long time in early access. Good early access, good flighting, goes for a long time.
So if it was a split, I'm going to turn this one over to you. So like if it was completely split, what are some areas that you can really see this, 343 paying the price? And on the flip side, what might be something that maybe we're not thinking about that could be good for them?
He broke up. Who was he talking to?
I was talking Proven. Was I breaking up? Sorry,
You just never said his name.
Yeah,
You and Proven keep breaking up, so it's really funny having conversations with each other because we've been getting like 80% of it.
Oh, well, my internet's really bad. I do apologize.
No, I mean, the benefit obviously is we get to play the game early. Like, I would love to be able to play Halo Infinite in 3 or 4 months. And I think it would be cool if, let's just say, a flighting program comes out 4 months before the game comes out. We could obviously test the game and make sure that everything's working well. The only downside I would say is
break at lunch.
Yeah. I would just say the only downside is 343 obviously has a reputation of releasing games that aren't finished. So it would probably be like, oh, 343 did it again. But I don't think that would be particularly fair to them this time.
That's the thing. I think a flighting program would shield them from that level of criticism because they're not officially releasing an unfinished game.
Well, it just depends on how they do it. Like if they just release it and then they like how like Fortnite was called pre-release for like a year, but it was actually out.
Yeah.
Like if they pull
Beta
that where
for
it's
the
like,
battle royale, I think.
yeah, or if it's one of those things where it's like it's clearly the game, they're just calling it a pre-release. Like I still feel like they're gonna get criticism because like they're just like, okay, well you're calling it a beta, but it's actually not a beta. So it just depends on how they do it.
Yeah. Regarding the whole, a couple months may not be enough for a pilot. I think that depends on what's expected of the beta or pilot, because people had concerns about the Halo Reach beta since it didn't have the time gap that we saw with the Halo 3 beta, but we did see improvements and changes from the Halo Reach beta to the Halo Reach launch.
It was
So,
very different back then too, because of how like software worked, where you can beta test or beta flight a game, or flight the game, and then you just turn it into the game, and it's not like you're beta testing an old build that doesn't really get touched. In the meantime, you're working on a bunch of stuff no one ever gets to see the immediate benefits of. The patching systems are so much better now that, yeah, a shorter one, you can definitely get way more improvements during. It's never going to be massive things. It's more iterative.
and if it's but if the multiplayer is further along than the campaign, like many of us assume, then that's where they could release it as a piloting program and primarily use that piloting program as a way to just balance it, just polish it. And the only concern, if they release the multiplayer as a full-fledged release without labeling it as a beta, a pilot, I think that's going to raise more concerns for the campaign. People are automatically going to assume that the campaign's in trouble, in more trouble than people already assume it is, if they release the multiplayer, but we don't see the campaign at the same time. I think releasing the multiplayer ahead of the campaign, like a full release, like splitting the release, like OBM just played devil's advocate, that would be a major mistake.
Hey, Jesse, we need some more controversy. Tell Cagney why he's really dumb.
I don't have to just watch him play video games. It's pretty obvious. But the actual, I think, a main concern people would have, and one of the main reasons for the delay, were the graphics. So if the graphics aren't ready 3 or 4 months ahead of time, and
I disagree.
The first impression people get looking at it again, so the demo didn't look that incredible, and there were issues. And if any of those same issues are still in a flighting phase, and we all understand how game dev works and how things really come together in those last few months, like, they'd have to make sure the graphics look really good, because people are such whores for graphics.
I feel like
someone just turned on their Xbox.
Yeah, I was going to say that too.
I completely disagree with the whole graphics was the main reason for delay, because if that was the case, they wouldn't have brought in Joseph.
I didn't say main. I said one of the main.
Well,
as in there were multiple mains. They all have a perfectly even slice of the pie. And I called you a graphics whore, Austin. If that's what you're wondering.
All right, good job. I think we're doing better. All right, your turn, Austin.
Very low.
Oh, I think to shield themselves from criticism, they would probably put out like a campaign demo that was super polished or close to polished. So because I agree, like if they put out a beta, even if obviously they could put 17 splash screens that says, this is pre-release, people are going to still be like, wow, this game looks terrible. Because like if you go look back at Halo 5, like the pre-release stuff, it kind of looked rough. Even the Gears 5 looked rough.
The Gears 5 Gears 4 beta looked like shit.
Gears 4 beta, sorry. Yeah, so I just feel like they kind of have to, because the problem with the July demo is they hyped it up so much, like this is the greatest thing that's ever been released, all that stuff. And then it was like, okay, this is clearly not ready to be shown.
Yeah.
So
they're
I feel
completely tone deaf.
Yeah, I feel like if they have a beta, they have to be like, okay, we know, like, this is how game development works. Like, it's not ready. Like, this is just how, in 4 months when the game comes out, it's going to look a lot better.
The next time they show the campaign, it has to look a lot better in whatever form they show it.
Yeah.
They can't show the campaign again in a rough state, and they're like, "What? Don't trust us. It's going to get better." No, if we don't see the campaign for 3 or 4 months and it looks marginally better, the trust is going to go out the window. It has to blow people away within context, for a Halo game.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happened with Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Looked pretty darn rough at their showing. I think it was in June.
Yeah.
And they started showing it again in the last few weeks, and it's real.
The latest trailer looks amazing.
Yeah, it looks really good.
Yeah. I'll jump in here. I disagree with everything. Everything said. I blanket.
Well,
I'm completely against the grain.
Okay, how do you feel about 1080p UIs, though?
Whoa.
Give me a 480p.
Did I hear someone mention a 1080p UI?
But technically, at least from what I remember, Microsoft didn't hail this Infinite demo as the next coming. That was the insiders. For the most
no.
John
Aaron Greenberg.
And they hyped it,
no,
but they didn't make it seem like it was going to be the best thing ever. That was someone like Zooch saying, "I can't believe how good it looks." Those are his exact words.
The official-
No.
Yeah,
Zooch, I don't think
I
Zooch
don't know
said
what
even
talking
anything about it. It was Aaron Greenberg, the Halo Twitter. It was all Microsoft. All Microsoft.
I'll look into that
admitted-
later. But back on topic, I think doing an early access would be a terrible idea. Halo isn't PUBG. Halo isn't Fortnite. It's not a small game made by a relatively small group of people. And Fortnite was lightning in a bottle. You know what I mean? It was early access
and
because the
anyone
main
who thinks
game
they
wasn't
should
finished.
do early access is an idiot.
I don't think labeling early access is a good idea because early access in itself.
Well, by fighting itself means early access. No, unless you
No.
want to limit
Early
fighting to like certain groups of people.
Early access usually insinuates that you're paying for an unfinished game, whereas flighting with Halo at least has been you're playing an unfinished build or a rough build for free.
Fighting is generally though more so you get selected for it. It's not public. It's under hard, strict NDAs as well. Is that what you want? Is that what you mean by release?
No, I want this. I want this to be a.
It's more like a Fortnite scenario where it's like a beta or a pre-alpha for like months, and then it slowly reaches full release.
I mean, even if they consider the multiplayer to be finished, I don't think they should publicly label it as finished until the full game is out.
I feel like labeling it as a beta is a lot worse. Halo's too big of a game to release a beta at that level and be like, hey, it's a beta. Don't worry about it. Pretend it's not released and have fun.
I just feel like that's how games work
and
but that's why they need to release it as a flighting. Flighting, I don't think has any negative.
Well, flighting is fine. Flighting's perfectly fine, but flighting is not a mass release. You know what I mean?
It could be.
Then that's not flighting. Then that's just an open beta, or the game just releases in an alpha state. You know?
Okay. Can I just get so you're saying you don't want any flighting or beta?
Oh no, I want flighting. There needs to be a flighting. There needs to be a beta, but I don't want the game to release 4 months early. In like a flighting word or a beta word that just carries on until the release of the campaign.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I much rather it all release in a finished state day one. I'm just playing along with the devil's advocate question that OBM posed. That okay, let's say they
started it.
Yeah, let's say they do release the multiplayer early. What are the net positives and net negatives of that scenario?
So that's why I'm saying that a big net negative for me is Halo's too big of a name to release like Fortnite. When Fortnite released, it wasn't this massive 120 million people a month game, you know?
Yeah, but when you compare it to Fortnite now, it would be considered a compliment.
Yeah, but Fortnite's been released for like, 2.5 years at this point, I think. Right? The
and it's an inside
release.
joke that they still call the Battle Royale a beta.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to go ahead and ban all of you guys for being.
Your mic.
But you can't hear me. Yeah, no, I said I'm going to ban.
Like you were deep throating it.
It sounded like you said you're going to ban all of us for. That's all I heard.
Yeah, I heard Charlie Brown teacher.
You mean eating the mic doesn't make it clear? Okay, no, So my thoughts on it, the reason why I asked this question, I think everybody who's a Halo fan wants it all to come out, and I threw out the theoretical. It is interesting when you really think about it practically. does it really? It does benefit the mind share, I think, of the game when everything comes out, and I think that'd be the biggest issue is if you split it off. At some point, though, I do think Halo and this off topic, but probably Gears and there's other franchises this makes sense. It would benefit them to kind of decouple the franchises in the multiplayers. And the reason I say that is because now that things have evolved so much in the gaming industry, it's a lot more difficult to really separate yourself. And when you have a franchise where the single player and the multiplayer kind of have to mesh together as well as Halo usually does in terms of, the weapons you use and things like that, and the move sets you have. I do think that it can be kind of restrictive to one side or the other. So, I think so to answer this question, again, hypothetically, do I think it's going to be a complete breakup? No. Long term, though, I do hope that they start to, maybe release big dumps of content for one and then for the other, and maybe start pulling it apart a little bit more, because I think that will give things like the campaign, that aspect of it, a lot more freedom, where it's no longer, tied to, it doesn't have to be tied to the exact same sandbox that the multiplayer. I think there is some benefits to it, but again, I think as things get, more competitive within this industry, they're going to need to give themselves as much flexibility as they can.
So real quick, I know we got to move off to the next subject, but with you saying that, what are your thoughts though? What that means for the Forge fans, the theater fans, which I would imagine probably less than but Forge is a major fan base within the Halo community.
Yeah,
that's one of the things. It's like a double-edged sword. It's a positive and a negative, because the fact that there are so many different fan bases within the Halo community does kind of restrict them from the freedoms that you just now described.
Yeah.
But if they go forward and they kind of and it wouldn't be anything new. Like the previous games have had multiplayer dumps with largely ignoring the campaign, so that really wouldn't be anything new within the Halo franchise. But with this being a platform, and we're now going to probably be seeing multiplayer dumps and hopefully either whether smaller campaign expansions that lead into larger campaign expansions, and with you saying that you hope that they kind of separate them organically so that it provides more freedom, which I don't think is necessarily a bad idea. You specifically saying that, where do you see that leaves the other subset of fan bases, like the theater fans, and the Forge fans?
Let me speak for you on this one, Bad. He wants to tell all of those people to go straight to freaking hell. Next topic.
Oh, it's actually a whole nother topic. I am curious,
but it raised the curiosity with me. But we can save it for a later date.
Yeah, I actually, Forge is interesting. I've been kind of hoping, and I haven't seen any signs yet of this, but I've been hoping that Halo does some sort of Forge type of modes within the campaign, or like a Mario Maker version of in Halo, where you can make levels and things like that. But I don't know that that's just something that that's probably another wishful, me dreaming up bullshit that probably won't happen topic. But
swear word.
Oh, well, whatever. We lost our endorsement. Sorry. But yeah, to answer your question, Mike, the Forge is part of the multiplayer right now, and I don't know that you can separate it, because people who play multiplayer play. I think all that stuff is tied together. So when they do officially release the multiplayer aspect of it, I do think the Forge should be complete this time, not like it was with Halo 5. And so I think it's about time right now, though, to move on to the next question, because we've now spent an hour and 15 minutes on 2. So I want to really quickly bring up the fact that they announced the esports teams, and also there was this Mark 7 helmet that seems to be coming to Halo 4. People have been putting those things together to to mean that maybe there is a beta coming up, and this kind of ties into a lot of the stuff we talked about. But do you guys think that we're no longer in hypotheticals? Are you guys predicting that this beta is going to happen soon? We'll start with you, Proven. I know you kind of were interested in that.
Specifically for the Mark 7 stuff, right?
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure what it means. I think it could mean that there was possibly a plan, like some kind of cross promotion thing between Halo 4 and Infinite. Because as far as I know, Mark 7 armor, the helmet, hasn't been in any other game except Infinite. Like, it's been mentioned in other games, but it's never officially been in there. So I think it's possible we see a beta, but we don't really know what it means exactly, so we're just gonna have to wait and see.
Anybody else have any thoughts? I know we talked a lot about beta in soft launch, so I don't want to rehash a lot of it. But initially, we thought, especially with like the esports stuff coming up, there were some signs, and I think that you mentioned, like, you thought that was kind of an interesting thing that maybe alluded to them trying to do some things with the Halo Infinite, some sort of testing ground.
There's been a lot of like weird things around multiplayer lately. Obviously, the esports thing, the helmet being found, some promotion stuff. It could just be like this was already planned announcements. They're just getting it out of the way.
I think that's the majority of it. It's really hard to stop when you've got this massive of a marketing push planned.
Yeah,
can only delay certain things.
Yep, I think you're right, Don. Like we're seeing the Taco Bell commercials, right? With so it looks like
he's on the Series Xbox.
He's on the Series. Yeah, it looks like that this is the Halo launch. All the Halo build up, everything's perfect except Halo's not there.
Yeah, all the toys, the fact that you can pre-order the game and the steel case and the statue. Yeah, the book coming. Yeah, it was very obvious this was a long time, years in planning, insane marketing push. And that's also a reason why I don't think it's going to be a super long delay in the long run, too.
Yeah, like if we're assuming that, if we're sticking with our initial prediction of the game coming out within the fiscal year, May or so, then I personally think we will get a beta. Something similar to Halo 5's, where it was for like 2 weeks or something, months before the actual release of the game. And hopefully sooner than later.
The one thing that I'll say, and I'll shut up about the rest, is that it is a testament to how dedicated, I think, and changed Xbox Game Studios is as a whole. That they have all these commitments, a system launch, marketing deals, and yet with all that being said and done and signed, they still delay the game for the better of the game.
Yeah,
that
was Phil's quote. 10 years ago, I could not have delayed this game.
Yeah. And you look at, and not even just 10 years ago, you look at 2-3 years ago with, State of Decay released unfinished. I would argue that Sea of Thieves should have had more content at launch. I mean, I hate to say it,
game preview.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
But
they have the system,
or you could have used a 2-month delay for sure, 100%.
I hate to say it, but Xbox doesn't have the greatest reputation in the past regarding the quality of their launch title or the launch quality of their titles. So this is a good sign, regardless of how inconvenient it might be. It's
like if you're a fan of Halo, this delays, you should recognize that it's a good thing.
Yeah, and just massive kudos to Xbox Game Studios as a whole, because this not only speaks good for Halo, but all future Xbox Game Studio titles.
Yeah, I think you guys are right on that, and that's one of the reasons why I spent a few shows making predictions. I've kind of waffled a little bit, especially after listening to Phil. I think he's given himself the freedom because to your point, I think the quality of the game is more important than than getting that campaign out sooner. Ideally, even though they're not going to hit the launch, if they hit something like May for the entire package and it's good, that would actually might actually be a blessing in disguise because there's really not a lot going on, on either platform at that time. You might have Ratchet around that time, but that's not going to maintain any mind share. So, I don't really think there's a lot of games in the pipeline from third parties or anything during the middle of next year. So it could be a blessing in disguise if they get it out. But at the same time, I think we are at a point where they realize they can't push out their premier franchise and not have it be, great, because that's still going to define, Xbox. And we said that before, which puts them in a peculiar spot because, again, Statton's there. And, what if that campaign needed more work? What if the story's not good? What if he gets in there and is like, we got to rework this. And we saw that with, we saw like Sony do that with Uncharted. Remember, they delayed the game. So was it half a year or a year because to rework the story? So, there's things like that could happen in the game. And I think we got to accept that's a reality. And that's probably not ideal because actually as they get into late 2021 and, early 2022, they should have a lot of stuff at that point in time. So that probably wouldn't be the best time to have Halo pushing up against maybe some of those Bethesda games and things like that. But at this point, I'm not going to predict anymore. I can predict, but I'm not as sure as I was that it is a May thing. And I think
I am far more sure.
Yeah, I'm still pretty sure.
Just to counter you.
When Phil waffled, if Phil can waffle, I can waffle.
I think it's just an interview question he's just answering. I'm not going to take too much stock in it.
I think it's just being honest.
Yeah.
That's the current state of it.
Like the words he used, you can tell as well. Almost, maybe, possibly. You know what I mean?
That sounds waffly to me.
Well, no, it also sounds open, as in like not hard committing, which is kind of what Phil does. PR speak for days.
Yeah.
One thing though, and as weird as this sounds, because you'd think a launch year or the launch of a console is one of the most important times, right, software-wise. But as weird as it sounds, I think if there was a time to delay this game, if there was a fall to delay this game, this was one of the better ones. If you know what I mean.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Console launches used to be okay. When I buy this new hardware, the stuff that comes out for it specifically at launch is the only stuff I have.
Only these 4 or 5 games.
Yeah. And now it's only these 4,000 or 5,000 games. It's yes, you want to have really good first party, and if they could have planned it differently, and if COVID hadn't hit and all those things, they would have. But they kept releasing their stuff this year. They didn't purposely delay games that they could have pushed back.
And Sony didn't do the same either.
Yeah. It's yes, I understand you want to have stronger first party. I argue it's a ridiculously strong third party, and if they've got the best system for running them, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's not great. Yeah. It's not ideal, but it's not a disaster like it would have been.
And launch will be filled with enthusiasts anyways, right? These consoles will be sold.
Did I hear my name? I'm sorry. Whenever Jesse started talking, I just zoned out. So
you do while you're playing video.
But yeah, that's all I'll say on that.
Actually, we'll save that topic for next show since that'll be lead up to the
we are 2.5 weeks from launch. Oh my god,
that's crazy! So Holy crap!
I'm about to lose a lot of money in my bank account.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and move on to community questions.
I thought you were leaving the podcast.
Wait, are we done with the main topics?
Done enough, I feel.
Yeah, we're almost an hour and a half. So,
Mike, I was just making sure that
into our hour and a half podcast. So, yeah.
Mike, you've got your quota of words, and just simmer down.
He's only halfway there. His quota is
we got some community questions, so you guys can lead on this. All right, so we're going to go to the forum of XboxEra, and first community question is from
that place. I love
that. Andrew Schmidt wants to know what the thoughts on coatings and replacing primary and secondary colors. This is not my wheelhouse, so I'm going to actually, Proven, you know some stuff on this. Go ahead and take it away.
So just to quickly explain, basically, 343 literally just a couple hours ago released what they're calling coatings for Halo Infinite. And if you've played Destiny 2, it's similar to the shaders in that game where you can't specifically pick your colors. It's kind of like one preset coating, I guess, and it comes with a couple colors, a couple textures.
It's actually more, it's Destiny 1 system, because Destiny
Okay.
1 shaders just hit everything. Destiny 2 shaders, you choose each armor piece. So it's if you played Destiny 1, that's very accurate.
Okay. Well, because they said you can customize each piece of armor like Halo Reach, so I don't know exactly how it's going to work.
Yeah,
But
if it lets you do the color per, then Destiny 2 is a very good analog.
Yeah, well, yeah. So, and some people I've already seen are upset about it. It's like, oh, well,
Yeah.
I liked how in Halo 1 through 5 I could pick my 2 primary colors. Like, I understand that. I'm not going to get too upset about it until I see it in person. Like, it just depends on how they do it, right? If they only come out with like a couple dozen coatings and it's not enough, then obviously it's worth criticizing. But if they come out with enough where everyone can be happy, then I don't really see too big of an issue with this. So.
I think with the free-to-play setup, there's going to be hundreds.
Yeah,
There's no way
for
they
sure,
don't go
easily.
all in. with
And
just
specifically
a
in the blog post, they mention about making it easier to create as well as one of the reasons to doing so.
I'll read. Clobrell actually put up a tweet here a couple hours ago. So I'll read. It says,
friend of the podcast.
Yeah, friend of the podcast, Clobra. Coatings explained by 343, a 7-layer shader that allows us to put any artist authored color, material, or pattern applied to weapons, armor, and vehicles. Additionally, players should expect more robust per piece armor customization choices akin to Halo Reach. And if I remember correctly, people really liked Halo Reaches, and again, I don't get involved too much in the customization, but I thought I remember Halo Reach being very popular with the community when it came to stuff like that. So, but I think you made a good point. This is going to be a free to play game. it's you can't fathom that they're not going to have a jillion different options in there. I think more of the question.
Just look at MCC. There's already a ton of options for old stuff that they're just as the test bed.
Yeah, they're going to keep on. Go ahead.
The Halo community is very fickle.
Very fickle. That's an understatement.
Like I remember in Halo.
Really?
I remember in Halo 4, and I think it was Halo 4-5. There was like a few specific emblems that were in Halo 1 through 3 that weren't in the game, and like people just like lost their mind. Like, I cannot believe this one specific emblem that was there in Halo 2 isn't in Halo 5. So like, like people are always going to complain, especially in the Halo community where like there's a million different opinions on everything. So it just depends. Like if they can provide enough variation so everyone can be at least a little bit happy. And I'm assuming they're going to, but we'll just have to see.
I have quite a bit of thoughts on these. Sorry, I played a fair bit of Destiny 1, and looking into it first, I took a look at our Halo, and I regretted it immediately. So that alone, people are losing their minds. The two-tone color system is inherently pretty limited, if you know what I mean. You pick one color, you pick another color, that's it. Maybe you have some tones to the color, that's it. When you look at some of the examples they've posted about the coatings, and especially when you look at some of the Destiny examples of shaders, they get pretty creative. They have various patterns, various designs. Some of them are multiple colors. In fact, a lot of them are like themselves 2 or 3 tone color shaders. And they look good. My only real concern is Halo's always been, for the most part, at least multiplayer-wise, red and blue, right? So, I mean, how would that work? You know,
wouldn't they still have? Well, yeah, I don't know.
Would it be like slightly texturing? I feel like, is that really worth getting a shader?
It just depends on if it's like red, but it's like, okay, one coating is going to be have some weird texture, some scratches or whatever, then it's fine. I just don't, because I remember in Halo 4, like they kind of changed the colors.
Yeah.
Like they went too far where it was like, it's not really red versus blue.
Exactly.
So
and the crux of Arena should be, cosmetics are secondary, right? Arena should be even playing field, whatnot. Like one specific skin color should be harder to see than another when it comes to the coding.
Is there a chance this is? I was going to say, is there a chance this is just for like other modes? Because it's hard to imagine them disrupting the competitive balance.
Exactly, that's all thinking too.
the one thing they did, so in the blog post that they put up, they said it's replacing the primary and secondary color. So like, if they're saying replacing, I'm assuming that's not going to be in competitive. So it just depends on how they do it. Like if they do it so it's not where it doesn't disrupt competitive play, then it's fine. And just they're gonna have to make sure they account for that.
It also might mean, or at least imply, that the big game mode coming with Halo Infinite will have use of these skins or these coatings, because I can't imagine they'd put all this effort in to change the system, create all these coatings and skins, whatnot, and not have it applicable in whatever their biggest game mode is.
Probably that's probably where it's going to be most applicable. I don't know.
Like the people complaining about the two-tone, it's kind of confusing anyway, because for the most part, at least my Halo experiences, it's very, very rare that I actually see the color I pick throughout all the games, Halo 1 to 5. You know what I mean? I'm either red or blue for the most part.
Yeah. The one thing about the Halo community is a lot of people just don't like change.
Yes, yeah, that's for sure.
So like, no matter what, I'm someone who obviously like, I'm less fond of some of the things that 343 has done, but like, but for this specifically, I'm like, I don't really care that much as long as it's not like, as long as I can still pick my colors and emblems and whatever. I think it's fine.
The main thing is with this one is eventually you'll have more customizations, colors and patterns wise than any previous Halos ever had, which is a good thing.
If that happens, then yeah, but we'll just have to, I'm assuming because of the free-to-play stuff.
Yeah.
But they're just going to have to make sure they put enough out there.
Yes, for sure.
The colors in 5 that I remember are Warzone Firefight and free-for-all modes is where you see everyone's colors, and everything else more defaulted. You just had the armor types, and then you had the team colors.
Red and blue, exactly. That's most of my experience with Halo, so I don't understand why people are getting too mad about this. But you're right, Halo community's fickle. It is what it is.
Because everyone gets mad about everything before they have the whole picture. Just
That's true.
Look at certain discussions that happened in a certain place today. Who needs the whole picture? Just get pissed.
No. I mean, you could just always go to Twitter if you want some better conversation. So I have over 7 million rec points that I have spent. So obviously, like none of this stuff affects me. I don't usually do the dress up stuff. So hey, Mike, how about you? Any opinions on it, or time to move over to the next question?
God no, like OG color, like for life. I just leave that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Okay. Same here. All right, we're gonna move over to Jem's question. So does anyone know if
you mean Jam?
So does anyone know if there's any other books that should be read prior to Shadows of Reach, or is it fairly standalone? I know the book just came out. Jesse, any initial thoughts? I know you.
It is. I mean, if you played Halo 5, you know the story of Halo 5. You could read Bad Blood, but that's more about Team Osiris. I wouldn't in any way call it necessary. It's pretty standalone. Major things happening so far, and I'm just hoping that those come up in Infinite in an organic way. On the whole, I would say if you haven't read any Halo books and you're interested in this one for Infinite, should be fine to just read it.
How far in are you?
Yeah.
I think on Kindle, like 60%.
How is it so far? Are you liking it? A good read?
It is fantastic. That guy knows how to write military jargon.
Yeah. I was saying I have the audiobook. I'm about an hour or two in, I believe.
How long is that? Does it say?
10 hours.
The audiobook is...
Oh, wow. Okay.
From what I saw, the audiobook is 13 and a half hours. From like what I saw, maybe I read it wrong. But yeah, I don't want to spoil it, obviously, but basically from the 2 hours I've listened to, they basically do a good job of recapping what happened from Halo 5, and you don't really need to know anything else, because I feel like I fully understand what's happening, and I haven't read any of the other books, so...
He does have 2 other Master Chief storybooks that I haven't read, but are, I believe, pretty well regarded, that I am planning to go back.
Those are prequels,
and read,
right, for the most part?
Yeah, they're nothing to do with this stuff, though. Yeah, they're much older stories. Almost felt like they were his get ready to start writing about new stuff for new canon.
I feel like one thing right away, especially if you're new to the series when it comes to the books, and this, I read the first few pages of this one, and right away, something that should stick out to you is you immediately get inside the Chief's head, which is something that's rare when playing the games. So for anyone brand new to the series and wants to dive in, just get ready for that. It's more of an intimate look than you've had before.
Yeah, he's not just a tin can. He's an actual human being and a very dedicated soldier human being, but there's a lot more to him, and it's very likable.
All right, cool. Actually, what we'll do is we'll have a spoiler cast. I don't know if it'll be 2 weeks or 4 weeks from now, but I think those of us who get a chance to go through it either or get to read it,
And
we'll
it might be
cast.
live streamed, so keep an eye out for that.
Maybe.
There's 1 out of 5 of us that really wants that.
Maybe. It depends if I'm having a good hair day. All right, we're going to move on to Apache asked a few good questions. We're just going to take a couple. Let's start with your controller settings. I think that's a good one. Who wants to start there?
There's only one controller setting. I mean, I don't know. I don't get the question.
I guess you'd say bumper jumper, but I would say have an elite and just leave it as is, and you're fine.
Elite's cheating, so that's a different
cheating.
topic.
Elite's smart. Paddles are the best. Bumper jumper without paddles, leave as is for me.
I don't know how you play I don't know how you play Halo 5 without controller.
Without what? Sorry.
Yeah.
Halo 5 without the elite. Yeah, without the elite controller, all those moves. My thumbs aren't that fast anymore.
For me personally, I've always done bumper jumper. I used to be 3 sensitivity, but I bumped it up to 5.5. So like sometimes I go between 4 and 5 depending on what game I'm playing, but I usually stick around 5.
You madman.
Yeah, but I'm weird because I only put the jump button on the paddles, and like I can't train my brain to put any other buttons on the paddles. So like I for Halo 5 specifically, I put the slide button on the left bumper, then I put the jump on the bottom left bottom left paddle, and then I leave everything else the same. So it's really weird.
How about you, Mike? What do you do?
I just learned whatever the developers make default and
Boo.
suck it up. I mean, I play the game. It's the way that it's meant to be played.
Trust me, Mike.
Yes.
Trust me, Mike. You are not playing the game the way.
Yeah, bumper jumper, if it wasn't obvious, is the way to play Halo, unless you have a controller. Yes.
I tried bumper jumper when I first heard about it. What was it, last gen or whatever on the 360?
Okay.
I can't do it. I can't.
Mike, the way the game is supposed to be played is you shoot them in the head. But no, go ahead. I'm sorry, Austin.
I was just say probably had it been like 10 years ago, I was default forever, but it took me a good month to switch to bumper jumper, and like it's hard to do it, but if you're gonna be playing competitive multiplayer, like you kind of have to, because having to press the A button to jump is just so
being able to look around while
hard.
jumping.
Oh, good. So I don't have to worry about it.
You said 10 years ago, but weren't you like 5 then?
Yes, when I was 3 years old, that's when I switched.
Damn. That's talent.
That makes sense. I actually have.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
One thing also I've been trying to do recently, specifically about controls, is I've seen you keep your control sensitivity low, like 3-4, so you can make the precise shooting, but you put your look acceleration high. So when you need to move around faster, you can still do that. It's taking some getting used to, though.
Yeah, I do everything opposite of what everybody else just said. So.
Yeah, the one thing that's cool about MCC in particular is they've done so many cool customizations. Like compared to what, like 10 years ago when it was just sensitivity and control scheme. Like now they've done so many like little things like aim acceleration, dead zones. Like there's so much customization now.
Yeah, actually, I would recommend. Well, this is personally. So what I like is actually turn because you get a
But now you broke up.
I broke up.
Actually,
I think turn.
Can you hear? Can you hear me now? God, my internet.
Yes.
What was that?
I'm going to try something different. I'm going to try something different with my internet.
Here, I haven't heard him in like 5 minutes.
Yeah. Aren't you
Are we
the host
still
of
on
hear
the
me?
podcast?
Can you guys hear me now?
Hey, it's so quiet. Why isn't anyone talking?
Yeah, we could.
You son of a bitch. No. No, what I was going to say is actually look acceleration is something, if you're looking for consistency in your turn speed, turning that all the way down is better, and turning up your sensitivity. At least you'll have more consistency with the speed you're turning.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So I thought that's how I like to do that. The other part is, I do use paddles for everything that I can. My goal is never to take my thumb off of the right stick, and that helps with your timing and accuracy. And I need all the help I can get. I'm getting a little bit old. I'm not as quick as I was, but I can time things out pretty well doing that. So I have running, sliding, jumping, and boosting all on paddles. So that's the way to work that. But anyways, any other thoughts on that before we? Huh?
Nothing.
All right. So we got, let me see here. We'll end it with this question. Apache had a few questions. We will save maybe 1 or 2 for the show. Single pest moment in the campaign.
Sorry, single pest moment? Like the worst?
Say single biggest. Yeah, worst. What's your worst, pet? Like, what's one of the most frustrating parts of any of the Halo campaigns?
That one time when the giant metal enemy had like 7 different clones or whatever. Halo 5.
Warden. Oh
Anyone remember that?
I'm thinking the Scarab. I'm like, Scarab has 7 different clones.
Warden is so easy to kill. You just get behind him. He's gone.
Shotgun him to the back, yeah.
Yep.
God.
Most frustrating thing. I mean, are we counting? I actually didn't play Halo 2 Legendary too much. I gave up after the first level, so I didn't experience the Jackals in too much of their crazy glory. I did see a video on our Halo recently, though, where it was just refusing to let this Warthog touch the ground until everyone in it was dead. That's amazing.
Yeah, for me, it was actually, I recently went Master Chief, all 6 games in the Master Chief Collection. Oh, can you hear me?
We went through all 6 games in the Master Chief Legendary Collection.
Okay.
Now, go ahead. I covered
Son
you.
of a bitch. Okay, thanks for being my...
I helped you. You called me a man.
I'm sorry. Like, literally, I don't know if there's just a bigger gap on my end, but go on.
Sorry. All right. Well, no, I was going to say, going through all of them on Legendary, there's a few spots that are obviously not balanced for Legendary. One of those was in Halo Reach. Actually, there's 2 spots in Halo Reach. One is when you're in the airships. If you ever tried that on Legendary, it's horrible. And then the other one is when you actually sit in a turret and you're trying to fire at the ships coming in. That seemed to be pretty difficult.
Yeah,
but
completely.
What about having an AI drive you off the cliff on a regular basis?
Halo 3, when you've got the mongooses with the rocket launcher guys in the back, and they repeatedly try to shoot wraiths that are below you, so they just shoot right to the ground.
Right next to you.
All right. Any last thoughts, or is it time to wrap the show?
Good question.
How about we just go ahead and talk about?
Let's
go
go for another 3 hours.
I think we're done. I think we're coming in hot now. We're kind of landing this ship like we are about to land on the Halo ring for the first time. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the show. And so you want to go ahead and just mention Patreon and everything else?
Yeah, I mean, you just did.
Okay, great.
I'm just joking. Yeah. Thanks for watching, guys, or listening or whatnot. I'm gonna try and make sure we have some video footage as well. That's hopefully relevant to what we're speaking of, in case you actually watch it. If you enjoy our content, please like, comment. Commenting is really important. I feel it shows that you're directly interacting with us. We all love it. We can talk back. We have a conversation. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and if you really like our content, we have a Patreon, which the link is in the description. It's on the website. It's everywhere. So feel free to check that out.
If you are going to comment, if you are going to come, go on.
No, that's the URL. Patreon.com/XboxEra.
Oh, really? Is it that simple?
Yeah. And other than the Patreon and URL, if you are going to comment, just make sure to comment about how Jesse is wrong.
how it's wrong that I don't get to speak more.
Or how Nick's wrong about the 1080p UI.
Boy, what are you talking about, you son of a bitch?
What about a 4K game with a 1080p UI in the game?
What if half the text is 1080 and
That's
the other half is
best of
4K?
both worlds, right?
Yeah,
I don't
maybe.
know.
What if every other letter in every sentence is a different resolution?
That's like my mic situation. Yeah.
You know what? The resolution they need is from the Virtual Boy. Give me nothing but black and red. That's you can't read jack squat. And your game should run infinitely better because it'll take like 1/1000th of the system resources.
Yep.
All right.
I guess that one
guys.
only really lands for people who ever used a Virtual Boy. Oh my god!
That's why I
is
need
that
to
thing-
use glasses.
Your age is
I think
showing.
this is a great time to wrap it up. All right,
Yes,
guys. Bye.
okay. All right. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time.
Color coding. Oh,
Bye, guys.
bye.
Goodbye.